And I think you guys pointed out, hey, there's those that have been, opposed to what he said and condemned it. Then there are those that are the pure racists that, loved it. And then there are, I think there was a third poll or a third section or segment that you pointed out that are kind of within the community, Hindu American community, that where we kind of saw that generational divide. I think there's yet another segment of the population, and that's kind of this like far left progressive South Asianist movement. You have your ABCDs of organization names, but they're actually gaslighting Hindus now, in the context of that statement, saying you unleashed this yourself. It's your fault, like victim blaming and victim shaming, right? Just because some people, like every other minority community, moved to the right at the time of the last election because they were fed up with what they saw in the Democratic Party or some of the far left's policies. And so they shifted more, and you saw a lot more support for Republicans. And there was a much broader coalition that actually, probably helped Trump in many states come to power. And so now that's the fault of the entire Hindu community, is collective blame and collective shaming of the community. So I think that's also a very dangerous thing that's come out. And we've seen that as a consistent trend with a lot of things that have been happening in the last, now it's been 11 months. God, we haven't even been a year into this administration, but um,
It hasn't been a year yet.
I know, right? Seriously. Whether it's been immigration policies around the H-1B stuff, or it's been just a general hate that's come towards the community, there's a lot of that victim shaming that's been, directed towards us from the far left South Asianist progressives.
And it really doesn't make sense because India and Americans were not the only one who shifted towards Trump. I mean, a lot of people have been pointing this out, that there was a broad coalition of many different minority communities that shifted towards Trump, even among Asian Americans, if you look at it. I mean, I saw polls where a 20-point shift among Chinese Americans, Filipino Americans, Vietnamese Americans. In fact, Vietnamese and Filipino Americans, if I recall correctly from one poll, went for Trump at a much higher rate, at a noticeably higher rate than Indian American Democrats. Now, what is very interesting is if you look at Edison, New Jersey today, I know we'll get to Mamdani in a bit, but yeah, maybe you could say that, okay, they went 30 points towards Trump in 2024. And then they saw what happened, and they voted for Trump. And then a bunch of people said, oh, you pee poo people, get out of my country. And now they shifted back toward Democrats by a huge margin. I think it was in the 70s. And so Indian voters are voters, right? Like if you appeal to them, they'll vote for you. If you piss them off, they'll punish you at the polls.
Well, and I hope they get both parties get the message that identitarian politics is a losing strategy, because a lot of people that we were talking to that did shift right did so because of hateful rhetoric against Hindus, including Hindu members of Congress, Hindu staffers in presidential campaigns, attacks coming from them from the far left of the party, and silence essentially and not defending them. That was seen. States like California passing laws that would single out and target Indian Americans. That was seen and affiliated with the left. And so people moved right. And now we're seeing kind of that same sort of ugliness on the right. And at least early indicators are that people are shifting back to the left. What I'd like to see is actually just focusing on what it is to be American, and having a broad view of that in the same way that the founding fathers did when they, laid down things like, religious freedom, equal protection, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, it's an experiment, and we make mistakes and we rectify those mistakes as well. We're not a perfect union, but I hope that both parties get the message and just quit this and call it out and just refocus on the things that are important.
Yeah, I think on the left, what you see is that this complete dismissal of a holistic or comprehensive American identity. And then on the far right, what you see is, no, the American identity is X, Y, and Z, and only X, Y, and Z. And everyone else gets squeezed in the middle. And I think and I read that somewhere, I can't recall the article, but it's basically, you've seen the destruction of the middle in both parties. And that's, I think, is what's increasingly scary, is that comments like what you saw from JD Vance, and which are becoming more and more common. I know we're going to get to Mamdani in a minute. those types of comments play to those extreme bases. And that's what, whether it's social media or otherwise, that's what people are lapping up. And I think that shows, that's reflective at a minimum, that the middle doesn't have a place, at least in popular politics on both sides. And both, I think, parties are acting in a very populist manner, but not in a good way.